Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And my guest today is Jenny Watson. Now, Jenny Watson is the founder of the Elderberry Company, the wife of a pastor and stay-at-home mom with two small children. She was looking for ways to keep her family healthy naturally. She started making elderberry syrup in her kitchen and found they were no longer fighting cold or flu. Friends and family were her first customers, but soon it got to the point where strangers were showing up at her doorstep at all hours, wanting to buy the magic elixir. Within a year, Jenny was making the syrup in mass batches in a commercial kitchen, and today is managing a multi-million-dollar business with a line of products and 11 employees. Welcome to the podcast, Jenny.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. It's a wild one. I never envisioned that I would be starting a business or running a business. Definitely wasn't in my even frame of mind for what it's worth. About 5 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom, wife of a pastor. My husband was working full-time. And I posted on Facebook asking if people wanted to try my elderberry syrup. I had first heard about elderberry syrup when I was pregnant for the first time, and I needed a natural way to fight a cold. So I went on Facebook and I asked, a bunch of moms, hey, I'm pregnant. What's a safe way that I can treat this cold? And I got a lot of different answers. I got garlic as one of them, and I remember elderberry syrup, and I didn't know what elderberry syrup was. I didn't know how to make it, how to get it. So I didn't try it at the time. I ended up chopping up garlic and putting it in yogurt. It was pretty gross. I mean, it kind of worked, but so fast forward when my son was in his first cold and flu season, he got the sniffles that turned into a full-blown cold, took him to the doctor. They found an ear infection, prescribed him antibiotics, and that cleared it up in a few days. And that just happened every single month that first winter. And that's a really common story for young parents. But as a new parent and young parent myself, I felt like I should be able to do more. I felt really powerless. I was surprised that I couldn't do more to make my child feel better. And so it was at that point I realized, or I remembered all those moms telling me about elderberry syrup. So I looked into it, and the next time my son got the sniffles, I made him a batch of elderberry syrup and started giving it to him. And a couple days later, the sniffles went away. And so I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And so it had positively impacted my family way before it was ever a business. And so, 5 years ago, I posted on Facebook asking people if they wanted to try a sample of it. And I had a handful of friends that did. And so I made them a batch, and I simply just wanted to extend the kindness that I wish someone would have done when I posted on Facebook. I would have loved one of those women that said elderberry syrup to say, hey, here, try the one I use or try mine. And so I simply wanted to share a solution that helped my family stay out of the doctor's office, stay healthy, stay active. And so those handful of friends tried it and loved it. And one of those friends said, if you ever wanted to sell this, I would have 100 friends that would want to buy it. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Sure. So I was like, sure, put it on your Facebook and let them message me. So she did, and a handful of her friends messaged me asking if they could buy elderberry syrup from me. So I made them a batch. I gave them my address. They came and picked up off my front porch, and I was like, that's pretty fun. Like, let's do that again. And so I just did it again and put it on my Facebook, and a handful of people gave them my address. They came and picked up, and it was a few weeks after that I just decided to make like a website, make a Facebook page, make a business name, call me like an actual business. And at the time, I'm making the syrup in my home kitchen. I have a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old. Like, I'm kind of a mess. And I'm inviting these strangers to come to my house to pick up elderberry syrup. But at the time, there's what's called cottage food law. And that's every state has different laws when you make food in your home kitchen. And so as making my food in my home kitchen, I couldn't sell online. So my website wasn't really a transactional website. It was more of an informational website. And then people found me there and then emailed me. And then I did the transaction at the roadside stand, which was my house at the time. So the busiest week there, that first winter, I had about 100 people come to my door over the span of a couple days, like a weekend. And I imagine that my neighbors were just like, what's going on?
Really? What are they doing?
What's going on over there? Like, it was wild and it was great and fun. And I was really enjoying it. And I was literally just following the demand of my sales. And it was almost awakened in me something I didn't know was inside of me, something I felt like very strongly, I'm created to do this. God created me to do this. At the time I was a struggling stay-at-home mom. Being a stay-at-home mom is never easy. For me, for my family, my husband and I, we wanted me to be home, and I was very grounded in that, but at the same time, itching to do something else, in addition to caring for my children. And so this was a great way to kind of have the best of both worlds. And so, my sales kept growing, and I started the farmers market in our area, which really got true strangers coming to my door. And that's what kind of set my husband and I on a path of like, hey, I don't think we should continue giving our address out to people we don't know, especially with little ones in the house. And so it was just a year later that I decided to make the jump into a commercial kitchen. And that was a hard season because that required me to be away from home. And I was a stay-at-home mom. And so that's a whole other story, but we figured that out and how to do that. And I was still a stay-at-home mom, but just, cutting out to make my syrup in another kitchen than in my home kitchen. And so when I moved to the commercial kitchen, that opened me up to be able to sell online, which really just changed my business because my audience is no longer the people that can come to my front door. My audience is anyone in the country. So we now ship our syrup nationwide, and we've grown immensely. And I went from a rented kitchen to a commercial kitchen that I now own. The bio is a little dated. Now we have nine people, but, over those couple of years of moving into a commercial kitchen, COVID happened, which was a great boost for our business. We grew immensely for COVID and grew up to 30 people on our team. And so it's been a crash course for me, and my husband's now a stay-at-home dad because we want to be home with our kids, but we've had to kind of shift positions a little bit. So yeah, overall, it's been a wild journey for me, and I'm hopefully going to continue doing this. So
That's exciting. So how old are your children now?
Now they're 5 years old and 7 years old.
Okay. So now they're starting in school.
Yes, well, we actually decided we were homeschooling, which is crazy to me. But in the fall of 2020, when the whole world was just kind of starting to come out of quarantining, my oldest would have been going into kindergarten, and we all remember what kindergarten was like, in 2020. Those 5-year-olds they'll try to non-traditionally learn on a screen, but it's a lot easier for a high school student too. So we just said, he's been home with me since the beginning. Let's try homeschooling. And so we did it and loved it. I love the flexibility it gave us. And so I homeschool as well as run my business.
Wow. So how did you get others for parents who are struggling with the same thing as far as running their business? There's a lot of mompreneurs, if you will, running businesses, homeschooling their kids. Any tips on organization or how to put your day together?
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in I changed my verbiage from balance and priorities to rhythm. And so my husband and I really try to establish a rhythm that works. But with little kids, you establish a rhythm, and then a couple of weeks later, they're completely different and you have to completely pivot. And so, we're not doing it perfect. But I also try to remind myself to be where my feet are. And so when I'm home, I'm home. And when I'm at the office, I'm at the office, and trying to make a clear cut with those. We also practice Sabbath pretty diligently, meaning 24 hours in our work week, in our 7-day week, that we just turn off. We don't work at all. We play, we rest. And that has been a lifeline for me because I work really hard. So I need to play really hard. And so that's a struggle sometimes to turn the phones off and turn the emails off and just rest for 24 hours. But if I don't do that, I'm not a healthy version of myself. And so every homeschool is different. Every business is different. But you have to keep open communication with your spouse, and you have to just learn to be really flexible. Another thing that we're really big on is couch time. And I don't know if that's like a known term, but we learned it in a parenting class. That's literally just like time for you and your spouse to sit on the couch and connect. Like, and it's a really good, and it's called couch time, and it needs to have your children present too, where your children are in the room, but your children are not interrupting you. They are seeing that mom and dad are on the couch, and that's their time. And there's something different about me as the child and my parents as the parent in the family structure, if that makes sense. And so, we started couch time when my oldest was like 2, and it was like 5 minutes of him just crying at our feet, wanting to come up on the couch, but like we practiced that every day. And now they're a little older. They let us have more time. So sometimes couch time for my husband and I is 30 minutes, an hour, it depends on how much we need to catch up on, but it helps us have that time to really connect, talk about our days, the business we're managing, the household we're managing, the school we're managing, so that the rest of the evening we can just, if we want to go do our own things, we can. If we want to play with the kids, we can, but we at least know we've gotten that time together. So
That's wonderful. I love that idea.
Yeah. It's been a big, there was the parenting class we took. I remember the teacher saying, if you only remember one thing from this parenting class, and so my ears perked up. I was like, okay, because I'm not going to remember everything. She said, remember couch time. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. So
that sounds great, because you are co-parenting these little beings.
Yeah. And we didn't expect this shift of my husband being the stay-at-home dad and me working. I don't want to work full time, and I don't work full time, but my business requires a lot more of me than what I would be able to give if I was home full time with the kids. So we still try to figure that rhythm out. And I was telling a friend the other day that I don't think we can avoid mom guilt. I think mom guilt will come at us almost every single day. And it's just a matter of what we choose to do with it. So I just call it out and say like when I have that thought, I'm like, that's mom guilt, and I'm not going to entertain it. But I still struggle with it every day. Every time, like right now, I want to be home snuggling my kids that are just waking up, and then when I'm home, I want to be in my business, growing and selling more and, pouring into my team, but you can't be everywhere, and you just have to I also, I'm chatty, sorry. I'm a big believer too, that God does not call us to be successful. He calls us to be faithful. And so my mantra in the morning is that exactly. I'm called to be faithful. So I'm going to be faithful with the business God's placed in my hands and steward it well. I'm going to be faithful with the children God's placed in my hands, and I'm going to steward it well. And that success, yes, I want it so bad. And there's seasons where I focus maybe too much on the success of it or the lack of success. But it's not up to me, so that helps me kind of keep me grounded in the rhythm act that I'm doing. So
That's definitely helpful.
yeah.
So I'm just curious, at any time a man is in a workplace and then he comes home, that is a huge shift. So what did your husband do to kind of make that shift for himself, even from a mindset point of view?
Yeah, so we are a year and a half in, and I would say it's not as hard as it was at the beginning, but it's still hard for both of us, him especially. Identity, purpose, all of that shifted quite a bit for him. And what's grounded him in this decision is that this was a very significant moment. He felt the Holy Spirit was calling him to make this decision. So that kind of grounded him to feel like I'm being obedient to what God's calling me to do. So even as hard as it is, and as much as he's struggling, like he knows I don't know if that makes sense. He's comforted knowing I'm being obedient, and that's huge for him. Like he's a big obedient person. So as far as that goes, but he has said, like, it's funny because like we'll be at like dinner, with like a new friend or something, and they'll say, "So what do you do?" And he'll say, "Well," I hear him kind of just, "Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad," like, and he's so comfortable with it still. And he said at the beginning he would find himself answering the question, "Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad, but I used to be a pastor," or like some type of some type of desire in him wanted that person that asked, "What do you do?" for him to know, for that person to know, "Hey, I used to be a pastor," like, and so, I mean, it brought up a lot for him of just where his identity laid, and what he really like cherished. And so I don't think, I think similar to mom guilt, he probably still has that temptation to want to do more. With 5 and a 7-year-old, that parenting is different than a baby. So I don't know if it'd be harder or worse to be a stay-at-home dad with a baby versus a 5 and a 7-year-old. We love our kids' age right now because they're so, well, fun, one, they're so much fun, but there are also so many opportunities to train them, to teach them, to coach them, to disciple them, that like, it's a lot more intentional than when you're just in the baby phase and feeding mouths and changing diapers.
That is so true. So does he do any pastoring at all at this point?
Well, I mean, we all are, we consider, just like whatever God puts in front of us, our ministry. And so, as far as vocational pastor, and he's not doing that. He is a volunteer at our church, helping in several ways, but not doing anything like he was before. So,
Yeah, because even as a stay-at-home mom and for stay-at-home dads, you love the time with your kids, but everybody needs to get away and do something a little bit different away from the kids some of the time.
yes,
You
yes.
can have adult interaction.
Yes. Well, and him too, like as a stay-at-home mom, and even still as like a homeschooling mom and like kind of stay-at-home mom, I have a great community of women and other moms. There is a small pool to select from for stay-at-home dads for him. He doesn't want to go to a play group with a bunch of moms, like, or he would do it, but I mean, that's just a little weird sometimes for him. And so, yeah, he's a lot more isolated than I am. And so, he loves to fish, he loves to golf. So he does try to get away, and I try to, respect his needs in that regard and getting him out. And I want to be home with the kids too. So that's what's great too, is a lot of times with the flexibility that owning our own business and homeschooling gives us, we can just pick up and go on a little adventure, even if it's just an afternoon or a day, or if we want to get away for a few days, like we can do that. And we're really thankful for that in the season of life we're in.
Yeah, it does sound like you have found a rhythm, which so many people would like to find, that
Yeah.
even though the rhythm keeps changing.
Yeah. Part of the rhythm is that it is always changing. But my husband and I learned not too long ago, just in kind of like a life planning session of just learning about ourselves and in our marriage and as individuals, that he values consistency. He likes a schedule. He likes, processes and systems. I value variability. I love the freedom to change my schedule, to change my mind, to change like my plan of actions, and all of that. So really those two are very different from each other. So, you put us in a marriage together, and a lot of times part of marriage is about, knowing the other's needs, and then it's up to you to meet it, if you can, or come to a compromise in the middle. So him and I both, like, once we learned that, like, that meant for me, okay, my husband needs to see my schedule, and I need to try to keep some type of consistency day to day and let him know when I'm going in. And so, we've tried, Sunday night, sit down, let's look at the week. And that helped a lot for him just to see that. But then I think also too, he has really grasped the variability of our lives. And so he seems to be a little bit more open to the unknown of what the week is going to look like. So we've both kind of found that middle ground to help one another kind of thrive in this season.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
And how is it that you encourage each other as far as in your spiritual lives? Did you have any practices you do or study together or anything like that?
Yeah, we the first thing that comes to mind is the love languages. I'm sure you're familiar with. Um Michael is a words of encouragement. And so that has been tough for me because I feel like I'm constantly encouraging him, but finding new ways to do that. And sometimes I find like that it's more about me encourage or speaking highly of him to other people, whether he's around or he's not, of just like, and it's easy because I think he's fantastic. So it's like, that's easy. I can do that. But I don't think I realize all the time when we go through seasons where I'm not as encouraging because maybe I'm kind of, up to my eyeballs in elderberry stuff in my business or I'm focused on homeschooling and doing that. But we've been married 10 years. So, I mean, kind of long, but, we got a lot of years hopefully ahead of us. And so our spiritual conversations of just our faith and the way what God's speaking to us, I feel like is coming a lot more organically, naturally, just part of who we are. When at the beginning, I would say we needed more structure, maybe, a set aside time to read something together. A lot of our mornings, especially because of the variability we have, we're able to just sip our coffees, and I'm on one side of the room on the couch, he's in his chair, and we're reading separately. And then, conversation just naturally happens. And then you go back to couch time. Couch time has always been a really easy way for us to talk about what God's speaking to us, but I don't think that we often have to ask each other what God's speaking to us at this moment. It just kind of comes out naturally, which I'm thankful for. I think there is definitely some value in being more like even more intentional with your spouse, because especially with kids in the mix, you go on and it's been years since you've really connected. Like it's important to make sure that that's a top priority.
Yeah, wonderful. So, growing up, did you always think I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, or was there some other dream you had?
No, and I don't know how I felt about being a mom. I know I wanted to be a mom. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, kind of. She did like an at-home daycare while we were young. And then when I went into kindergarten and started going to school the majority of the day, she started to be a teacher. And my dad was always a city bus driver, so he was always working. I was the youngest of four. So I didn't grow up like with these like solid dreams of being a stay-at-home mom. But it was really clear in the beginning of our marriage that we just said, like, for us, it's the best place for us to be is home with our kids, which then made sense that we chose homeschooling. Like, I think you take COVID out of history, and a couple of years ago when my son was going into kindergarten, I don't think I would have given homeschooling a thought, because I was a public school kid and I thought it was fine. I'm looking back at it a little bit more critically now, but overall, it wasn't a terrible experience for me. And so that was surprising, but I think I wanted to probably be a teacher. I wanted to be a marine biologist, like all these things. I went to school for psychology. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help people. I loved helping people. But I ended up right out of college getting an executive assistant position, which I was great at. And then so when I first started Elderberry, one of my friends called me an entrepreneur, and I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, I didn't know what the word entrepreneur meant. I was like, I never heard it. I didn't even know as a young girl that was an option to start a business yourself. Like, it didn't even occur to me that was an option. And so I'm super passionate about letting my kids walk alongside me as I grow this business so that they can see it too, and giving them little ideas of like, you want to do a lemonade stand? Like, like things like that of just like igniting that wonder and passion in them. If that's what they're wired to do. They might not be, God might have other paths for them, but I at least want them to know it's an option, because it's been such a fulfilling part of my journey.
Wow. And as you've gone along the way, starting this business and not knowing you were starting it, but starting a business, have you had any aha moments or times where you think, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or you learned something as you were going on your journey?
Many, many moments. And usually it's, it's usually at the point of the most pain that I've been in, our pain points usually bring us to a space where we're ready to learn. And so I talked about it a little bit earlier, but that jump from taking my business out of my home kitchen into my commercial kitchen was a lot harder than I say, in just passing. I was going through this group coaching call where the woman speaking asked us to write on a little piece of paper, what's holding you back from pursuing your business. And it was because it was a business coaching call. Like, what's holding you back from really growing your business? And I wrote my kids. And I crinkled it up, and she says, okay, hold it in your hand. And I want you to just squeeze your hand so hard. And she's like, so I'm squeezing my hand so hard. And she spends about 2 or 3 minutes talking about what you've written in that thing, and just keep squeezing it. And so then she's like, okay, I want you to open it up. And so after you hold your hand really tight, it's like painful to open it up and to let it go. And so her illustration with that is like, when we choose to hold on to the things that hold us back, we're only hurting ourselves. We're only causing ourselves pain. And that might not have been a huge moment for the other people in the group, but for me, it was this I need to stop holding on to this idea that my kids are holding me back from my business. I can have both. And I think God wants me to have both. And so I thought about if my girl, who's 5, at the time she was, not around a year. If she was in her 20s and she was struggling with the thoughts I was struggling with, and the just beating myself up all the time, if she was struggling with that, what would I tell her? What would I as her mom, what would I tell her? And I think I was like, snap out of it. Don't hold on to it anymore. Go after what you want to go after, and submit everything to God, because he doesn't call you to be successful. He calls you to be faithful. And so be faithful in everything you do, and trust and quiet yourself every day so that you can be connected to the vine and plugged into God, and listening to his voice of which way to go, and doing that every day is so huge. And so that was my aha moment of, no longer does my business need to be in opposition to my family. And it is a gift to my kids for them to watch their mom pursue and go after exactly who God created her to be. And so, that idea of the guilt I felt of being up here on my computer while my kids are on the floor playing, no, mom needs to do that, and that's okay, And so I started bringing my kids along to the meetings I would go to. It was a mess. They would be in this, when I got my own storefront in my own kitchen, they came with me. When all the equipment came, and there were tons of cardboard boxes, they grabbed I think I have pictures of it. They grabbed all the cardboard boxes and made Cardboard City at the front of my store while I was setting up my store for the first time, So it's bringing alongside of me, my kids, so that they can this can be our story, not just mom's story. And they don't know what they're doing half the time. They don't realize what I'm doing as they're getting older now. My 7-year-old's asking more questions. And then I have dreams of when they're, able to work, they can come and work at Elderberry and maybe that'll ignite some type of passion in them to start their own business. And it can be something that impacts more than just me.
Beautiful. So let's just talk about elderberry syrup. Some people know what it is, but some people don't. So what is it? What's in it? How does it help us?
Yeah, so elderberry is just a natural way to support your immune system. The berry itself is antiviral, anti-inflammatory, high in antioxidants. So it's really well known among, just populations that are really holistically minded as just a natural way to stay healthy. And it's known to cut the durations of colds, flu, allergies. Part of my business, in my business journey, I've learned the FDA has kindly reminded me that I can't make health claims with my syrup. So in this kind of setting in a podcast, I can talk, but I've learned that I can't I can't make those health claims because research hasn't been studied enough on elderberries. And that's how it is a lot with holistic remedies. And so I respect that. And I don't say the words colds, flus, allergies, but the truth is that that's how it affected or impacted my family. And that's why I've grown the way I have, is because our customers find that it does keep them healthy. And so our syrup is our main product. It's what we're most known for. And it's what we make fresh every week in our shop. And that's what really sets us apart from, you can get elderberry syrup at the grocery store or at the pharmacy. It's going to be in a medicine bottle. It's going to be really thick. It's going to be really sweet, and it's going to be able to sit in your medicine cabinet for 2 years. Our syrup's different. It's going to be a lot thinner because we don't use any additives, any preservatives, any sugars. So it's not going to be a syrupy consistency. It's going to be more of a juice-like consistency. And it's simply a blend of berries, spices, and honey. So it's got elderberries and then another berry called aronia berry. Their common name is chokeberry. And that's the highest antioxidant berry out there. Our spice blend is ginger, clove, and cinnamon. And then we sweeten with raw honey that's local to our area. Has a lot of great health benefits of raw honey in helping our bodies fight infections. So it's literally those ingredients. We brew it fresh every week. We bottle it by hand. We put the lid on by hand. We put the label on by hand. We write the best by date by hand. I mean, we're a really small batch, handcrafted operation that just, and then for the lack of preservatives, it doesn't go in the medicine cabinet. It goes in the refrigerator, and it lasts about 2 months. So you got to use it up. You don't want to use up too much, or you don't want to buy too much that you can't use it up in the shelf life it has, but you're not getting all the added sugars that are in the store-bought brands. And sugar, as we know, suppresses our immune system. So you're taking elderberry to strengthen your immune system, and then you're also adding a bunch of sugar onto it, which counteracts what you're even trying to do. So.
Mm-hmm. And how do people find your syrup? Do you have a website or someplace they can go?
Yeah, so about 80-90% of our customers find us on our website. It's the elderberryco.com. And so we also sell on Amazon a little bit, and then we have a storefront here in Southern Indiana. We have a really great local following, and we still do the farmers market, the one I started at. We still go to it. We love it, and we love our locals, and they find a lot of a benefit in just having that storefront. A lot of locals to buy online. We have a great subscription program where you can subscribe and save 10% on every order and get it on a recurring basis. And then you can change that subscription, cancel it at any time. Super easy to use.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I have a personal question for you now.
Sure.
What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
This point, gosh, it feels like a cliche thing, but it's my kids. I just love the snot out of them. I mean, they are just such a joy to be around. Now they drive me nuts at the same time, but specifically with my kids, I love exploring and adventuring with them. And so they're really into creeks right now. And so we go, like the last 2 days, we've gone to creeks, like, knee deep creeks where they can go out there with their nets and their buckets and catch crawdads and catch fish. And just the wonder and curiosity that they have, like, is infectious for me. Like, I can't get enough of it. And so my husband's the same way too. Now it's really hot where we're at right now, so creeks aren't as fun as like the spring and the fall time, but we're so excited for the weather to cool off for us to do more creek adventuring right now.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for sharing your stories and experiences and the elderberry syrup.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really thankful for it.
Yes, so I have one last question before we finish. What is your best advice in living an incredible, amazing life?
Ooh, best advice. I feel like I've given a lot right now, so maybe I might repeat. It might just have to be personally, my faith bleeds through in everything I do. And so for me, the most true fulfillment, joy, happiness comes from Jesus Christ. And so I would just say that if you don't know Jesus, figure out who he is, find out who he is, the real true Jesus too. You know, I think that a lot of people can be hurt by faith. And so the Jesus that is out there, he's the true source of joy. He's the way, the truth, the life. And for me, that's been a game changer for me. It's been my steady rock that I've built my life on, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.